I'm Chris Wood. I am Director of Demand Generation at ActiveCampaign, and I've been a HockeyStack customer for almost a year now. I was at Refine Labs, and before that I worked for Showpad. Our in-house solution was just first touch. So we had a proprietary cookie that captured first touch and attached that, and that's what we were referencing in Looker dashboards internally. As you can imagine, first touch doesn't really tell you an awful lot. We weren't seeing anything attributed to retargeting, although obviously we knew that was working. We weren't seeing anything of the multi-touch journey. We couldn't see the impact that a lot of LinkedIn advertising was having because it was largely impression-based, and we just had no idea. I knew LinkedIn was working, but I couldn't prove it. I couldn't show that it was working, ask for more budget, more resources, so that was a major problem for us. The issue was more so in how difficult it was to actually do anything within Looker. Like every request that the team had to go to the BI team, the ops team. It had to be, we couldn't just go in and say, oh, I want to take this cut of the data and action it ourselves. There was basically no functionality to let us do that. Everything was really difficult and closed off. I was actually a non-believer in multi-touch attribution for a long time. I was burned by a different vendor years ago. When I was at Showpad, we implemented Visible as a multi-touch attribution platform. And my feeling about Visible was it was like shooting an arrow and then drawing a target around it afterwards. It was creating an attribution model that proved what you wanted it to prove. And so if I wanted to prove that LinkedIn was successful, I would just make a model that gave all of the credit to the middle touch. And then it was like, look, LinkedIn's driving 80% of our business. It didn't tell me anything. It was just raw data that I was expected to make the story myself. What HockeyStack has been able to do that's so different to us is, one, the quality of the data that we're getting in HockeyStack is much higher, but two, HockeyStack is allowing us to understand those trends over time and also predict where to go next. And so instead of us just saying, okay, here's the data, we'll tell whatever story we want and draw this attribution model, HockeyStack is able to say, look, if you actually look at things in uniform, these are the things that are contributing, and we're able to actually see patterns there that actually exist rather than drawing the patterns on ourselves. I didn't consider myself in the market for multi-touch attribution. What I started to see from HockeyStack on my LinkedIn was two things that really changed my mind on it. One was being able to tie out LinkedIn impressions at the account level to revenue. That was really important to me because I knew that mechanism was happening. I just didn't have the insight to prove it. And the other thing that really piqued my interest was lift reporting. And so being able to say, okay, so for any cohort that saw this campaign or this combination of campaigns versus a control group, what is the actual lift on my business outcomes, on people signing up for a trial and people becoming a paid customer? We had no way of doing that internally and probably never will. And so once I understood that was an availability, that really got me interested in a solution like HockeyStack. One of the issues that we knew we would encounter working with a vendor to work with us on attribution was that our data, we're like a 20-year-old SaaS company. Our data is pretty unwieldy. It's in lots of different places. We use our own CRM, which HockeyStack didn't already have an integration with. They built one even before we signed a contract, which was amazing. So having to work through some of those difficulties, the HockeyStack team worked really closely with our operations and data engineering team to push data from our data warehouse. We use Snowflake. That's like where our source of truth data is stored. Getting everything into HockeyStack, making sure everything was aligned, making sure that everyone was able to sign off. And that was a really big project. And I think there were times where we were, is this going to work? You guys were always so confident that you're like, we'll be able to do it. Like, trust me, we'll do it. And there were times when we were like, will they be able to do it? And they did. You guys did do it, and you've done a great job. But I think it's, if you're nervous about the data that you have and whether this is something that can work, having seen our data, like I'm pretty confident they'll be able to work with anybody's and get the job done. So my team, which is sort of paid and digital acquisition, the content marketing team uses it a lot to tie out in blogs and other parts of the website to revenue. We also have our affiliate and partner team in there, and we're currently working on a very cool use case for our sales team that's going to roll out within the next week or two. So the team that's in there the most is definitely my team, so the paid acquisition team, myself, but also our ad agency, who has worked really closely with HockeyStack to make sure we're all referencing the same reports and dashboards, and they're in there every single day making decisions. And then I would say probably weekly, the content marketing team is checking on the performance of their blogs and their new pieces. Affiliate probably in there once a month, because that's how they report, and they go in and check the impact of affiliate and reseller traffic and how that's changed month over month. So pretty quickly, we could see directionally we were wasting quite a lot of money. I'd say like the biggest thing that we could see from HockeyStack was in Q4 when we onboarded HockeyStack, we got the data in there. We were able to look back and see, okay, we're spending pretty significantly in some areas where we could see that it's driving first touch trials, but it's not actually driving quality outcomes. We're not driving people through to becoming paid customers. And there's other channels where we looked at lift reports and we could see we were actually under leveraged. And then what we were able to do in Q1, we're actually able to cut our advertising budget for paid media by 50% versus Q4 and still hit our revenue goal every single month, which was a huge, obviously, saving and increase in our return on ad spend. I've been really, really impressed. I've actually exceeded my expectations. And so right from day one, I felt that it's been a true partnership, that HockeyStack has really invested in solving this problem for us, but also just really invested in solving this problem like for the world. Like that really comes through with every interaction I have with the team. The team came over, the HockeyStack team came to Chicago. They spent time one-on-one, in person, onboarding our data team so that everyone felt really happy. We have like a really difficult data setup, I would say. And HockeyStack worked with our data engineering team, with our operations team. They made sure that everything was being pulled into the platform correctly, that everything was being double-checked by everybody. And so, yeah, I've been really, really happy. And on top of that, we've had multiple product featuring improvements, changes to the way that reports are built out. We made requests, and those things were put into practice by the HockeyStack team really quickly. So super impressed with the level of service we've had. It's working really well for us. So there's sort of two sides to what we're able to see with HockeyStack that we couldn't before. One was proving that LinkedIn in general was having a much bigger contribution than we could prove by just looking at click-based attribution. So we had the impression-based attribution in HockeyStack. We could see when companies had seen our ads, seen our videos, and then converted. And then the next level of that is, okay, we'll break it down. Which of the campaigns is having the biggest effect? And then we're able to look at those campaigns versus each other in terms of their contribution, move our budget around to support the campaigns that were driving the best outcomes. But I think the smartest thing that we're able to do was be able to look at aggregated user journeys and say, okay, well, what is the most impactful combination? And so we could see things like if there's a first touch for our audience on LinkedIn and then a second touch on Instagram as retargeting, that actually has a 4x increase in customers converting than if it's just seeing a LinkedIn touch or an Instagram touch. And so it's been really intentional about building those user journeys. So the sales use case is really exciting. We are working with HockeyStack to pull in different signals from SimilarWeb, from Apollo, from the various places that our sales team is already pulling data, but currently that is happening all over the place. They're having to pull data in from everywhere. It's all just in Google Sheets. It's just unmanageable. What we're able to do with HockeyStack is be able to API and pull in all of those data pieces, score the accounts based on those signals, and then quickly alert the sales team when one of their accounts has reached that certain trigger point where, okay, now's the time to outreach. They're the hottest. They have 3 months out from their current provider renewal. They've been on the website 2 times in the last week. Like, now is the time to reach out. That kind of functionality is something that would have cost us a fortune if we'd used a separate vendor. The fact that we can have this use case within HockeyStack at the same time as our marketing and attribution use case, so powerful for us. One of the things that I was not anticipating learning so much from HockeyStack was how users were interacting with our website and the impact that would have on revenue. So I knew that we'd be able to see attribution from paid channels. That was kind of what brought me in to HockeyStack. But one of the really cool things that we were able to do was an example. So competitive use case pages. So us versus our competitors. We have a couple of key competitors and we have comparison pages for each. And what we saw from our previous just web engagement, so time on site, scroll depth, pages visited, we could see that one of these was outperforming the other. People were spending longer on it, they were reading further. It's like, okay, this is a better story. What we found with HockeyStack, when we could see the full revenue picture from those, was that the comparison page that it seemed like was underperforming, that people quickly read through and moved away from, was contributing way more to revenue. And we would have no idea. So what was happening was we had a comparison page against one of our competitors that was just basically like a table that compared the key features. And what people were doing were visiting that, confirming that they already understood that positioning and moving away and converting because the story was clear. The other competitor where we had the really long page, people were reading loads, they were reading that far because they were waiting to be convinced by us. And they weren't being convinced by us. And so we were over-investing against this one competitor when the story with the other competitor was actually what was driving revenue for us. We would have had no idea about that without HockeyStack. So one of the other things that we were looking at before the current sales use case that we're building out with HockeyStack, we had like a V1 where we got our target account lists into HockeyStack, and HockeyStack was able to match out those target account lists based on activity on the website and channels. And so we're able to look at that account list and look at things like marketing touchpoint penetration into the list. And then we could pull out those accounts that were not receiving any kind of marketing touch point and then put them into a separate list and then push the separate list back into the ad platforms to make sure we're getting full coverage. So that enabled us to go from like a 5% marketing penetration into our target account list to support the outbound team up to like a 50% because we were able to much better segment that list. And that really improved the outbound team's ability to outreach to those companies because they were warmer. They'd seen the ads. We knew exactly how much and which parts of the website they were interested in, and we're able to segment and serve them ads based on that. Again, that's something we anticipated we could do in 6 Sense that we actually found was much easier to do in HockeyStack and made much more sense for us to pull in the marketing data into HockeyStack in one place and then take action against that target account list there. So that was another use case I didn't really anticipate when we signed up, but it's made a big difference to our outbound team. Part of what I was talking about before about I wasn't overly sold on attribution because there are so many things you can't measure, but it makes so much sense to properly measure the things that you can, right? You know there's always going to be a portion of things that are going to come in direct, you don't know where they come from. That's fine, you allow for that. But for everything that you can measure it well. Measure it in a way that actually makes sense, that you can see trends over time, that you pull all that data into one place, and that you can look at those touch points and how they play into each other. So another use case that we found was we were looking at our blog performance, and we found that there were a certain number of blogs that were actually driving revenue for us, like significant revenue as a touch point, but just not a first touch point. So we weren't seeing this in our internal data before we got HockeyStack. So that gave us confidence to start putting paid behind blog articles. We would never have done that before because you don't put paid money to send someone to read like a mid-funnel blog. It's not conversion optimized. It's not really how you would think about paid, but it's working. Like those campaigns we can see in HockeyStack, they're driving incremental revenue for us. But we only saw that because in HockeyStack we could see people who visited those blogs at some point in their user journey had a lift, like they were more likely to go on to become customers. So why not engineer that journey? Why not pay to make sure that they see that article and therefore increase your chances of them becoming a customer? And that has been a really strong use case for us too. Before, if I said I want to spend $50,000 this month support, like pushing blog articles to paid traffic, they'd have told me I was crazy. We've had a great partnership with HockeyStack. Wanted to thank them for being so proactive as partners, for taking a lot of the things that were difficult and working through them together as a team, for being always available, for training our people, for even training our outside partners. It's been a great partnership, super thankful, and hope we can continue to work together for a long time to come.